Yes, now, don't let China slip away, President Trump. That is the subject of the riff. We know that President Trump has slapped a new 10% tariff on China, and for a bunch of reasons, I hope he doesn't relent. In fact, today at a presser, here's what President Trump said about talking to the Chinese dictator Xi. Take a listen.
On when you would speak to President Xi, sir? Any update on when you would speak to President Xi?
No, we'll speak to him at the appropriate time. I'm in no rush.
I love that. I'm in no rush. Nor am I. Good for Mr. Trump. In terms of China's continuous unfair trading practices, we are learning now that they never enforced the hard-fought China Phase 1 trade deal negotiated by President Trump in his first term. Never enforced it. As somebody on the China trade team then, I can tell you dealing with China is like bleeding water from a stone. The key points were China's constant theft and intellectual property and their forced transfer of technology. With very few exceptions, they do not let American-owned companies operate in China. They did not make the purchases of farm or manufacturing commodities that they promised, and I fear that renegotiating that will be an exercise in futility. And that brings me back to Mr. Trump's 10% tariff on China announced just a day or two ago. One very brilliant part of that deal, of that tariff, is the so-called de minimis exception, which has not been renewed. Now, what is it? It's the $800 limit on duty-free goods coming into the U.S. That exception has exploded exponentially in recent years, with cheap Chinese retail store goods coming into the U.S. and putting out over 7,000 mom and pop retail stores here out of business, into bankruptcy, and an expected 15,000 would close this year, according to Core Site research, if this exemption is continued. I hope nothing like this is ever permitted again. But wait, this story gets worse. Because these $800 or less packages are not searched or investigated much at all when they come into customs in the U.S., the Chinese have used it to ship fentanyl-related chemicals and other precursor parts. They ship them directly into this country through the so-called $800 de minimis exception that nobody really wants to look into. So let's hope that President Trump never goes back on that exemption, or for that matter, any number of things. It's bad enough that the Chinese have bankrupted our mom and pop stores. It's even worse that they're killing our kids. And that's the riff.